I welcome you all once more to the fifth session of this series of sessions, 7 sessions in total, intended towards family business training. These sessions, may I remind you, are being organized by the Family Business Committee within the Malta Chamber of Commerce, Enterprise and Industry in conjunction with Malta Enterprise and the Family Business Office. And this Family Business Committee is also sponsored by BNF Bank. Today's fifth session is about effective communication and having proper information flows in family businesses. The first part of today's session is seeing what needs to happen to have our family businesses become data-driven organizations, in the sense that making sure that decisions taken at family businesses are done and based on the data, on the asset of data that businesses have. And for that to happen, we need to make sure that this data is well managed, is well categorized, is well analyzed. Data can be a very complex thing to manage in order to use it as a basis to take decisions and hence deliver business value. Many a times, unfortunately, I meet family businesses that take decisions which are based on anything except data. In fact, many a times when one analyzes the data, and someone like me who advises family businesses starts analyzing data, even if it's rudimental, even if it's not complete, it starts giving the initial indications that go diametrically opposite certain decisions that have been taken in the business. Why is data important? It is important because it provides insights which can help in decision formulation, and it also can confirm whether the data we have at hand needs to be improved, or we need to collect more comprehensive data, or we need to analyze it in a different way to see whether the business is on the right track or not. We need data to understand both the value of the business and the return on investment this business is generating, both now and possibly in the future. We need the data so that we can then translate the results of all the data we are analyzing into decisions that are based on this data, and hence data-driven organization. And then once a decision is taken, we need data to track what were the effects of this decision or the number of decisions taken, and whether the decisions taken address the issues at hand or whether further decisions need to be taken. Normally, especially when I meet family business who are very much at a loss and do not have the culture, do not have the habit and the systems in place in order to get the data in the right way and analyze properly, they are at a loss from where to start. And normally I always tell them to start where they feel they are mostly at a loss, to start where they feel that their biggest problem lies. Because that is normally a good use case, a good scenario. So using the data, collating data that can likely give an insight to the biggest problem you believe you have at this moment in time will likely be a good starting point to start changing your organization into becoming a data-driven organization. It is impossible to try to use data to solve all the problems at once. It is not a question, especially if you do not have the habit and the systems to analyze data, collect it, review it, come up with reasonable results to then take decisions, that you just bring a lump of data and see what you can do about it. It's about really seeing what data you can measure and what that data can sensibly and reliably translate itself into decisions which can stand on their own 2 feet after you've concluded your analysis. My advice is that if you try to solve several situations at the same time, you will likely not have the data or the capacity to analyze all the data to address all those situations. You will lose focus, you are likely to lose heart, and it will be very difficult to be able to defend with data the decisions you will be taking. The issue is that in order to start changing your family business and becoming a data-driven organization, you do not need all the data in the world. You can start with smaller data sets. You can start with your internal information system. You can start with your account system. You can start with your stock system. You can start with any CRM system you have, even if it is Excel-based. Okay? Then obviously the data gaps will immediately become evident. The data improvements will also become evident, and we can improve over time. However, it is important that data of whatever type or format is used, that we try to improve on it, we try to improve the way we analyze it, the way we collate it, the way we organize it, because many a times the case is that businesses have some form of reliable data, they are just not analyzing the data, and they are stuck using outdated business practices, outdated decision models, outdated business models, for the simple fact that they are hesitant to fully adopt the insights that the data analysis can provide. It is useless investing in systems. It is useless analyzing the data if the data gives you a story, gives you clear trends, gives you clear decisions that need to be taken, and these decisions are not taken for reasons which really and truly, normally, I find it difficult to understand. Reasons that are linked to history, to tradition, because my father always did that, or my grandfather did that, or we never did this, or we never did that. Reasons which are not really based on data and should not be real foundational reasons on which you are taking important decisions. And so being data driven is very much cultural dependent. Having the culture to really analyze data, but then to act on that data. Normally we see that the data-driven family businesses have these cultures within them that allow them to be very competitive, if not ahead of their competition. They use the data to think differently because they realize that to be really data-driven organization, they need a different mindset. They need to be open. They need to think differently. They need to be critical of the way they are operating and to be innovative, especially when the figures and the data start showing them of the need to create new business life cycles, new innovations. They are ready to take the risk. They fail fast, but they learn fast, because leaders and data-led organizations understand that people learn through experience, through trial and error, and these characteristics are the foundation and stones of innovation. Um, Gaining insight and knowledge is very important, but then you need to have the culture to change things and learn as you go along. Data-driven organization also have the culture of focusing on the long term, that the data journey and changing their business and becoming a database organization means that they are going to transform the way things happen in their organization. Because being a data-driven is a process. Perfection is not achievable, but in this process, constant improvement in becoming better, in taking better decisions, in taking quicker and better decisions, to not lose on opportunities, to dodge bullets, to dodge problems, to nip problems in the bud before they become too big to solve, are extremely important, and they are focusing, that is based on a mindset which is focusing on the long term. Needless to say that to be competitive in this world which is technological and so data driven, family business need to learn and to move away from the pitfalls of the past, to realize you have a problem when the ship is 3/4 under the level of the sea, if not with just the mast showing. More likely than not, you had data which was showing clear early warning signs, which somehow, somewhere, someone decided to ignore. And it is therefore very important that organizations and especially family businesses become driven by data and facts more than anything else. In the second part of today's session, I want to focus on what to do with the data, because many times family business also have another stumbling block. They have 3 stumbling blocks when it comes to data, and so far I have touched on two. They either have absolutely no system or it's very rudimental and they need to get started to collating, organizing, and analyzing the data. The second and most common stumbling block is they have the data, it is just they're not analyzing it well, and they do not have the culture to take decisions and take them in good time from the analysis of the data. And the third, which I'm going to touch upon now, the third stumbling block is that they do have the data, they analyze it, they come up with trends. Many a times they might take decisions on it, but then they have a stumbling block of what to do with this data, how they communicate it. Do they communicate it with anybody? Do they use it to build trust and cooperation with important stakeholders that affect their family businesses? Or do they just keep it for themselves? Or do they just take decisions based on data, but they do not explain the rationale on which that decision is taken and the data that supports that rationale, at least 2 key stakeholders? And so we will look at the data communication strategy, what family businesses this can do with the data in order to build stronger relationships with key stakeholders. Because owners have also the right, they control this right to inform. This right obviously gives you full control over the communication function in your family business, because nothing can really be shared which is important for the family business without the permission of the family ownership. And here is where it comes, the very difficult balance between privacy and transparency, between of what to do with the data and how to communicate it. On one hand, you have the importance of the data of communication, and that one of the key competitive edges that family business have is in building trust, what I call the trust capital, with key stakeholders for them to thrive, for them to move quicker than the competition, even larger competition. Obviously, to balance between privacy, the importance of privacy of key data, but the transparency of some data to key audiences, like the next generation, spouses, employees. Employees, they are a very key stakeholder in your business. And what steps can you take as a family business to create effective communication that takes note of this trade-off between privacy and transparency? If we believe that communication is critical, obviously communicating is extremely important, okay? Because trust and building trust, especially with key stakeholders, can help you navigate better difficult challenges. We've seen during the COVID time how much it was important for those organizations, for example, to have a strong trust relationship between the owners of the business and their employees, that they needed to come together, understand the needs of the business and the needs of the employees, and find a way forward in those difficult times. And so having these trusted relationships are likely to sustain family businesses, not just in the immediate term, but across generations. And those will be the basis to help the family business compete with companies that might even have more resources. Obviously, you need to judge when you are communicating data to these key stakeholders. If the persons you are communicating with are competent, and so if you are bringing to them relevant and effective knowledge according to their skills and abilities, are they understanding what you are telling them? If the way you are communicating is showing that you are being open, you are being transparent, you are being honest, okay, in sharing information, in sharing plans, in sharing decisions, in sharing the rationale, because that will help you build trust with these stakeholders. If you are showing that the decisions you're taking based on this data is showing that you are demonstrating care, not just for yourself, but for the common good, for everyone's benefit, and whether the way you are communicating, the decisions you're taking backed by the data is inspiring confidence, is showing that you are competent, that you know what you are doing, and that you are constantly delivering on what you are saying, okay? It is very easy, and I would say almost it's instinctive, for family businesses to decide to withhold all information to themselves, okay? Family business can take the sort of no risks approach and share and take the approach that sharing any type of information of the business comes with a risk. It can create trouble. It can create troubles with children who are entitled because they see, for example, that the business is performing well, with meddling spouses who would want, I don't know, a better profit distribution, with greedy employees who would want, better pay increases, possible loss of competitive advantage. And so the question normally is, why should I share my information privy? Why should I have people privy to sensitive information about my family businesses? And I understand people and family business owners who think this way. I understand their concerns. I understand where they are coming from. But I encourage them to have a different mindset. Please also, in your analysis, put on the balance what are the consequences of not sharing information. If we agree that communication is necessary to build trust, what are you giving up by holding cards close to yourself? Okay, what are you giving up by not building these trusted relationships, which you need, especially in difficult times? How do you expect people to believe what you are saying if you have never shared any data. Right? It is all very natural, for family business owners to struggle between the trade-offs between what should I keep private, what I should be transparent about, to whom should I keep this private, to whom should I be transparent about. But obviously you can have a communication plan which outlines what forms of information can be shared with whom. So if you're sacrificing privacy, you're sacrificing it with certain key stakeholders, and then examine what information you should consider sharing with them, and how and why you should do so. And in fact, I have given some examples here of the trade-offs of between transparency and privacy on certain key stakeholders, the current owners. Okay, in families, owners can have different levels of involvement. There are those who work in the company day to day. There are those who are involved only in the boardroom or in the owner room, in the decision making as the owner room, as we've seen when we did the corporate governance session. Okay, and it is almost an understandable instinct that family owners who are not deeply involved in the business are given access to a lot of data, whilst those who are not involved in the business are not given access to the data, or are given access to the least amount of data possible, although they are owners. Okay, you should be careful about this course of action because it can have long-term consequences, especially if that means leaving certain families out of the loop. Families thrive when they are backed by all owners, when there is a willingness to commit to the business, and so there is a price to be paid there as well. Another issue is group stakeholders is next generations. If I see the point made from present family business owners and leaders, especially of businesses which are doing rather well, that if they give full view of how well the business is doing, they are likely to ruin their children. They create a generation of entitled children. In Maltese, we say, oh, yeah, xandi naħseb għandi ħobżi maħbus. Sort of, why should I worry? The business is doing well. I do not need to put a lot of effort to work hard because our family business is already doing well. You can create a balance. You can mitigate the risks to avoid, on one hand, communicating financial data, especially to the children, without actively hiding other types of key information from your children, from the next generation. If you feel that divulging financial information will foster the children a sense of settlement, appeasement, a sense of entitlement, you can share other types of valuable information besides financial information. You can share with them the information about the family values, the path and sacrifices it took to succeed, the decision-making processes within the business, how decisions are taken, on which basis, and also help them understand the family business strategy. This for them to understand that those numbers, that positive financial performance is not falling from the sky, but because a lot of work is going on in this family business. There is a downside. If you shield your family, your future generations from knowing anything about the business, you are preparing them to fail. You are not preparing them fully to start thinking like future owners, to start thinking strategically, to start building an emotional connection to your business. And you risk limiting how much passion and talent they want to invest in developing this business. And that could have also its downsides. Spouses. it is a very common occurrence that current family business leadership would want to withhold as much as possible, if not all, information from spouses of other family business owners or other family business persons involved in the business. Whilst I understand the rationale for that, normally the fear is that sharing certain information, especially financial information, with spouses can create vulnerability. Especially the main worry is that if a spouse understands the value of the business, they could use that information against the family member if one day the marriage goes wrong and they are separating or divorcing. Okay. However, I would like you also to examine other frames of mind. First of all, spouses can provide talent. There can be a source of talent and expertise to the family business. And if you exclude them completely from any communication, that is a pool of talent which you could need and which you are deciding to do without. Spouses also have a great role in raising, in formulating the next generation of family business owners. Okay, and so they might have interest and the role to play if they are given access to information. Thirdly, just because you exclude them from all the information doesn't mean they do not have other ways of getting to know it. They might likely get second-hand information, which is hardly ever fully correct. And so they will likely build wrong conclusions, which will build frustrations, which will likely put more stresses in the family, which will likely affect future generations, things which would be better for you and for the family business to avoid. And finally, the employees. I see the point that some employees really share information with employees on a need-to-know basis, depending on their roles. You know, many a times I see that the case is also where no information is shared with employees, because the key positions, executive positions in the business are occupied by family members, and these family members only share information with non-family executives or advisors, who are normally external third-party people. However, this has a downside, this has a risk. If you do not disclose any information to your employees, you risk losing their loyalty, their engagement. Because when employees lack any type of insight into the overall direction of the business, the overall health of the business, they start filling that void with rumors, with conjectures, with their own anxieties, and that could lead to people thinking that your business is not doing well, and so deciding to leave your business, to go and seek alternative employment, with the result of you losing valuable human resource. Many times you need to strike a balance in the way that you seek engagement with your employees, so that you get a form of alignment, and an alignment that can only be achieved by having a level of openness and honesty with your employees. And here I am showing you a possible, it's like a proposal, a possible communication plan of what to communicate with each type of stakeholder. What extent of communication, what you are likely to be beneficial to share with each type of audience. Okay, so with the owners, you're likely to share everything. With how the ownership design is set, how you take decisions, with the value of the business and this financial performance, and even any plans to transfer the business into the future. With the next generation, you can most probably over time decide to share all types of information and withhold information as how you're going to transfer that business into the future, or doing it in a metered way over a phased period. With spouses, you'd likely communicate on all levels except the transfer of the business into the future. Whilst with your employees, you'd likely communicate mostly on the impact of the company in the community, and offer also some metered, some limited communication on the financial performance of the company and how it is achieving its goals, okay? And also some metered communication of how the future transfer of the business is going to happen, because employees need to feel that the business has continuity, okay? That beyond this present leadership, this business will remain, which will give them peace of mind on their employment. Whilst on the other hand, you would not communicate anything on the ownership method, on the ownership structures, on the family employment policy, and you will not give them data about how the family assets will be transferred to the next generation. So this gives you an idea of how to go about having a communication plan across the 4 different important stakeholder groups in order to create a balance between privacy and the need of transparency, to create trust between yourself as family business owners and other key stakeholders. As part of the communication plan, obviously we need to see the medium we are going to have in order to communicate. What mediums are we going to use? And there are various mediums. We could use forums, meetings, as we saw in session 2 when we created the 4 rules, all right, the ownership, the boardroom, the family. These are all important forums. We could have policies which create, which can be communicated in a way that it makes sure that everyone is on the same page. We could have dedicated communication functions that, especially as the family business grows and we cannot rely on the informal, loose governance style, the company would need, the family business need to have allocated resources to manage the different levels of communication and platforms using technology, more than just relating on traditional communication methods. Family businesses, especially when they grow, they can use technology to share information. I mentioned the example here that some family businesses use surveys to get input on major decisions. And that is a way as how to communicate on how decisions are being taken. And so this brings to an end this session on family businesses, on the need for businesses to become data-driven organizations, to have the data, organize it, analyze it, to then not sleep on the data, to take decisions in time on the basis of the data. But also the third element is to then have a plan on how to communicate the data, to build trust, which is so much needed, especially in difficult times, as the business grows as well and becomes more complex from the different stakeholders, okay? I will now, at the end of this session, input session from my end, I will now pass on for 2 interviews done with 2 persons. One of them is Carl Sullivan from Sullivan Maritime, who will give us his insights about his experience from his family businesses on the importance or not for his family business to be a data-driven organization, and how to go about communicating the data. We'll also have the same input from Alistair from Universal Import and Export. Thank you.
Data alone is not enough to take a decision, but without data, decisions tend to be very subjective, and it's very difficult to monitor whether they are decisions that are actually helping things move forward or not, or whether the decisions being taken are efficient. So definitely, we work a lot on data, but then you always have to put into context. So my point being is, it's great that you go through the data, but you have to also be able to see where that data is being applied in real life, because a disassociation or a disattachment to where that data is actually applying might lead to an incorrect decision as well. So I think a balance.
I definitely agree, yes. I mean, usually family businesses tend to lean more towards emotions and value-based when it comes to decision making. However, nowadays, especially with our family business, we're trying for the younger generation to obviously take more decisions themselves. So we're trying to embed this culture where we use data and factual results to take actual decisions, not just emotions. It's obviously difficult because you have different generations and you have different stakeholders involved, but obviously we're trying our best to use actual facts to take decisions, obviously to improve the business and for a very good long-term future.
So we definitely focus on the strategic communication side. There's multiple reasons in reality why it's important. Firstly, because it allows stakeholders to take more ownership, which means that any individual resource is much more effective than if you had to withhold that information. And secondly, it's because we're all human beings and we all want purpose. So if we feel included, kind of there's a reason to be doing it. In this day and age, I believe it's now more than ever important that people find satisfaction in what they are contributing towards. Money is fine, but I think a lot of people are looking for a sense of belonging. Having said that, obviously, it's very important how that information is passed on and to who. And I'm not referring to just because someone might be let's say someone might be managerial level and someone else might be CEO level and someone else might be directorship level. It also depends on the individual and their experience. So you might have someone at directorship level who, although by simplistic terms, they should be given XYZ information, but they then might not have the experience or the know-how to process that information, which might create a hindrance, either because excessive time is spent trying to, let's say, rectify a misunderstanding or explain what the way forward is. So in my opinion, strategic communication, and on the other hand, you might have people that have the experience who are maybe at a lower level, who giving that information actually gives them more drive. So my opinion is that from a family business perspective, and given that us as a company, we are very much focused on the culture side of things, or the culture aspect, we decide how to pass on the information depending on even the individual and their ability to understand the information being passed on. It's not just, let's say, from a hierarchical point of view.
I mean, like in most things in life and in business, it's about balance. It obviously depends on who you're talking to and what information is being discussed. As a family business, we usually tend to have a very open door policy and open communication strategy with all our employees from top to bottom. But then again, let's say, for example, you're going to speak at a board meeting to different board members, you're obviously going to speak about all business information and all data. I mean, it's very difficult to withhold information in a meeting with board members. However, then again, if you're going to speak to employees and speak about personal data, you have to obviously be a bit careful and have a strategy in place in order not to expose certain information to different people. Like, you know, it's very difficult to find the balance between the board members and the employees and also family members, like you said. But we do believe having a very, very open communication strategy, and we're then again very careful with who we divulge the information.